Let me do a statement first on the situation with Department of Investigation. You've undoubtedly seen the news about our outgoing DOI commissioner. Let me be clear, this wasn't a decision I made lightly. There's nothing more important than the Department of Investigation having honesty and integrity. According to an independent review by an investigator chosen by the outgoing commissioner, the very top leadership at DOI repeatedly undermined the values critical to its mission. It's my job as mayor to make a change so that DOI can do its important work going forward. I'm announcing the nomination of someone who I have no doubt will lead DOI independently and effectively with the integrity and the ability that I believe defines the career employees of that agency. Margaret Garnett is a seasoned prosecutor with a track record of high-profile success. As a state and federal law enforcement official, Ms. Garnett has prosecuted corrupt officials, organized crime, gang violence, white-collar fraud, and international terror. She's led large teams of prosecutors and investigators in rooting out waste and fraud without fear or favor. I've defined Ms. Garnett's mission simply: restore trust in the agency and aggressively hold accountable those in city government violating the public's trust. I have no doubt that she's up to the task. We take questions on DOI. Yes.
I heard someone say, as soon as they heard this, that this is akin to President Trump firing Robert Mueller. How would you respond to that?
It's a ridiculous comparison. It is just apples and oranges if ever there was. Commissioner Peters took a series of actions that led to whistleblower complaints. Those whistleblower complaints created a problem that literally was unknown in the history of New York City government, because we never had a whistleblower complaint against the DOI commissioner in anyone's memory in this government. The process that had to be created was to choose an independent investigator to evaluate what happened. The independent investigator was chosen by Mark Peters with the agreement of the law department, went and did the investigation, came back and said there had been abuse of power, there had been inappropriate treatment of employees. It's quite clear in what has been put out in the McGovern report that these are the type of activities not becoming a commissioner of DOI.
Why did you do this today? The report came out well over a month ago. You had compiled a dossier on Peters this spring after he actually took this step. Why now? What's behind the timing of this?
Sure.
After all the issues we saw last time, the snowstorm and everything.
Well, obviously, this is something that once I got the McGovern report and read it in the days immediately following its publication, I was deeply troubled. A lot of members of the senior team at City Hall were deeply troubled. We had to think about it, but increasingly it was clear to me that there was no way for him to continue in the role, but we had to have a suitable successor. And we've been undertaking that process to find someone we thought would be truly effective, truly independent, and could really, again, restore the trust and address the problems that occurred. And I'm convinced that Margaret Garnett is that person. As soon as we had that person, it was time to make the announcement. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, do you think the Yeshiva investigation has merit?
I don't comment on any investigation. If there's an investigation, we will fully cooperate. I haven't been given any details on it, but whatever work DOI is doing or will do in the future, we will fully cooperate.
So was it a factor in any way in the decision?
No. No.
In 2016, when there were a number of investigations going on, did Mr. Peters or his staff ever threaten to come and seize City Hall computer servers? And if that has any truth to it, did they threaten to do that with armed guards?
I'm not familiar with those specifics. I can't say whether it happened or not. As you ask it, I'm not familiar with those specifics. Yes? Okay. Willie, you have your hand up.
The McGovern report is lengthy.
Yeah.
You mentioned it, but can you talk about your reading of it and what elements in there stood out for you and were essential to your decision so far?
I was really struck by Anastasia Coleman repeatedly and respectfully asking whether what was being asked of her was illegal, and that the answers were so not only disrespectful, but non-responsive to an essential question that any public servant would ask. You're not supposed to follow an instruction if it's illegal. And of course, the denigrating approach towards her and other employees was unacceptable. A lot, but I think it was clear to me that something was fundamentally broken. Yeah.
Mayor, the McGovern report was also very critical of Mark Peters' first deputy, Leslie Grosvenor. She's going to be in charge of the department pending the city council having a say on your nominee. Is there concern for you about her being in charge?
I'm just looking forward on this one. We've found a successor who is first rate. Margaret Garnett comes out of the gold standard law enforcement entity in this nation, the Southern District of New York. Extremely distinguished career, obviously now in one of the most senior positions in the Attorney General's office. This is exactly the kind of person that the agency needs right now. It will be up to her to figure out how to proceed with the whole approach to DOI. That's what I'm focused on. She'll be in place. The council will go through its process, but she'll be in place soon enough.
In terms of the council process, I take it the charter mandates that there's also a process for dismissing a DOI commissioner. What do you expect to happen next?
How do you mean?
I mean, there's a process, I guess, where the council has to be informed of why you've taken this action?
No, the charter mandate is that the specific issues that led to dismissal have to be presented. The commissioner is given until close of business Wednesday to respond. The specific issues are literally everything that came out of the McGovern report. But in the meantime, we've presented Ms. Garnett's name to the City Council. Their process will now proceed, but obviously will take more than 3 days. Yeah.
Do you have any concern with the council perhaps not going with your selection? Sorry, I know Councilman Richard Torres, who is the chair of the investigations committee, he was disappointed that Mark Peters was fired. He said that he praised him for the investigations he had done, particularly to City Hall. I mean, do you feel that the City Council will affirm your selection?
I think the City Council, has always, in my view, had a very responsible professional approach to the consent process. And here is a prosecutor with impeccable credentials, someone who I have no prior relationship with whatsoever. I think they will look at the nomination unto itself. And I will never speak for them, but I think they'll see someone they'll be impressed by.
Who else in your administration has been fired?
Well, look, the situation is that every personnel decision is specific. Every trajectory is different. I am not going to get into chapter and verse. There are times when, there's a reasoned conversation that things aren't working out and someone decides to move on. There's times when people come forward and say, I don't feel like it's working out. This is, I think, a rare time when it came down to something as cut and dried as this, but, each one's individual.
Can we get one?
Well, hold on. What's that?
Can we get one verse? You don't have to give us chap. Can just one person?
I think I've told you what I'm going to tell you. Let me get someone who hasn't had a chance first.
You obviously appointed Mr. Peters. Do you regret that? Did he exhibit some sort of traits while in office that you didn't know or foresee that he had?
Yes and yes. I do regret it. I'm very, very proud of the people that I've named. If you do a composite of the hundreds of people I've named, I think overwhelmingly they've been really good quality public servants. I think this was a mistake. I think there were some signs. I never would have imagined anything like this, though. Let me just get anyone who hasn't had a chance. Yes.
Yeah, two things. One, are you concerned that Commissioner Peters might try to fight this. And he has the ability, and he's saying that he's going to respond in writing at some point over the next couple of days. Are you concerned at all that he might air out any dirty laundry?
There's no dirty laundry to air out. He can say whatever he wants. Again, every investigation from anywhere, internal, external, we've cooperated with, very comfortable with those facts being discussed. Expect him to respond. I have no idea how he'll respond, but I do know that on the specific issues raised in the McGovern report, he has responded to those previously, and I don't think those answers are sufficient. But I don't know what he's going to say, but I feel like we've done things the right way. Yes.
To go to.
What's that?
If he refuses to leave, if he wants to fight it.
The law is abundantly clear. Take a look at the city charter. Couldn't be clearer.
You said that you have no prior relationship with Margaret Garnett.
Correct.
Anybody else in your administration, such as Zach Carter? And then secondly, Peter's reports expose some serious lapses, such as issues at NYCHA and with the Rivington case. You were very critical of some of his reports. Speak to the perception that some people may have that an executive is firing the person who investigated him and exposed real issues.
And I'm just going to ask everyone, I will happily take the one follow the other because I want to dignify each question, but that's a lot of material. So let's try and do the first one, which is straightforward. I do not have a pre-existing relationship with her. I don't know of anyone, certainly senior at City Hall, who does. There may be some, but I don't know of them. I don't believe Zach Carter does. On the perception issue, I think people who look at this will analyze it this way. There were reports that were critical of city agencies. That's normal for DOI. I might have agreed or disagreed with any individual recommendation or any individual analysis, but DOI is meant to be critical of city agencies. And that went on for years, and we've continued to respect that process. What changed was very clearly documented an effort by the commissioner to usurp the power of another investigatory agency without any attempt to recognize the limitations of the law, without any meaningful dialogue with City Hall. And then when the person he named had the audacity to say, "You're asking me to do something illegal," and she would not follow that order, she was summarily fired. And then an independent investigation by an investigator of his own choosing delineated all those mistakes and abuses of power. The DOI commissioner is supposed to be the most pristine of all. That's not pristine. So I think anyone who looks at these facts will say that this was the right time to make a change, and that Margaret Garnett is unquestionably the kind of person who should be holding that role. You want to do anything? Could be DOI, could be anything else. We're going to do just a few more. Yes?
How did you find Ms. Garnett? How did you get in touch with her? What sort of search was done for a replacement for Mr. Peters when you decided that you wanted to get him out?
We have a personnel operation, functions all year long, and that operation sought suitable names. I don't know the exact way her name emerged, but her name came forward in recent days. She was vetted. The vetting was impeccable, and I talked to her this week, and after a couple of conversations was convinced she was the right person. Yeah?
Could you or Mr. Keelahan just kind of walk us through what that meeting was like? It seemed...
What meeting? I'm sorry.
Meeting with Mr. Peters today.
He was there, I was not.
Can you tell us how it went? How
Sure.
he reacted, what he said?
The meeting was varied. I presented the findings that go to the DCAS commissioners that really are the McGovern report. It was that simple, and it's a termination, which allows a period of 3 days through next Wednesday for him to respond. It was that simple.
And how did he react?
He took it, accepted the document, looked through it, and that was it.
Mr. Mayor, I have a conceptual question
Sure.
about apologies.
About apologies. Sure.
Do you think people should only apologize for things if they're fully to blame or to blame?
I think there are times when anyone in personal life, or certainly a public servant, has done something wrong knowingly, and particularly if they are directly responsible or singularly responsible, there's definitely times to apologize. But I do not feel comfortable, first of all, with the incessant desire to assign specific blame where it may not exist, or to find comfort in seeking blame. If you're talking about the storm, it's obviously very complex. It wasn't about one city agency or one city leader that could have averted what we just talked about. But there's other times where an apology is absolutely appropriate and needed. It's very individual.
Apology implies blame to you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Why weren't you present at the meeting with Mr. Peters? You guys go back a while. Why weren't you there?
Look, I just think it was best to have the first deputy mayor who has handled that relationship over the last year. I don't deal with the DOI commissioner day to day. I think that was the appropriate way to handle it. Okay, thanks everyone.